Today I'm talking to Maddy Glenn. Hi, Maddy, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. As I say, long time no see.
Yeah, I haven't seen you for many years.
I know. My hair's a bit longer. Look. I'm trying to keep up with yours.
Actually, my hair's longer too.
yes, it is actually. So, traditional first question is, what do you do?
Okay. Well, I run a business and I'm an author. So my business is called Softwood Self-Publishing, and we help authors write, edit, print, design, market their books. Basically, we do everything required for self-publishing authors. But I'm also an author myself. So I've written 2 fantasy manuscripts that are out now, On the Edge and In the Dark. Yeah, so it's quite a lot I get up to, and I mostly spend my time working on other people's books rather than my own. But that's in a nutshell what I do.
Yeah, cool. That's great. I said to you before we press record that I'm finishing off this book that's taken me just forever to do. But you must have heard that umpteen times about people. It's just because it does, doesn't it? You think, oh yeah, I got this idea, and it goes on.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes where you get clients who have taken 3 or 4 months to write their manuscript and they've just boshed it out and it's really ready to go. But I talked to somebody yesterday who said this has been 10 years in the making, and she desperately wants to get the book out. You know, it took her 10 years. I mean, my first book took me 4 years. So yeah, it can take time sometimes. Yeah.
So you obviously are interested in books. So tell me how that started, because that, I think, might be the earliest entry point in the
Yeah,
stories.
I mean, I suppose I was quite an early reader. When I was quite little, I was the first in the family of my siblings to start reading myself. I think it was Harry Potter books, actually. And I must have been 7, maybe 6, start reading by myself. And pretty much then I said, I want to have a book on a bookshelf, my book on a bookshelf that other people can read. And I was kind of obsessed with it from then. And of course, as a kid, I wrote loads of different things that I never finished. And you know, they were mostly knockoffs of other things. And I tried to do The Incredible Journey at one point, which then I realized was already a novel. I tried to do a Kid Goes to Wizarding School, which of course was Harry Potter. You know, so I did a lot of knockoffs when I was little. And I was desperate to be J.K. Rowling at that time. I was desperate to be the big author. And for everybody to love my work, I suppose. And then I grew up and when I went to university, I was trying to write my first book, and I just hadn't really ever got around to finishing anything. And so then after uni, I actually dedicated time to my first book. So hang on, I'll just say, during uni, I ran a student magazine. So I led 30 different writers and edited pretty much every piece of work they wrote. And it talked about all the stuff that happened on campus, you know, all the films being made, the events happening, the plays happening, you know, all that stuff. There wasn't really a magazine on campus at the time that talked about campus. It talked about modern affairs and politics and stuff. And I thought that it wasn't very student centric. So we made our own magazine that was student centric, and it lasted probably a year or 2 before it kind of fizzled out. And so then after university, I just thought, you know, I know how to edit and I know how to write. I'm going to actually do this book. And then, of course, it took me another 4 years to actually do it, to actually publish it. I think it was 4 years. So I think my love for reading started when I was about 6 or 7, and writing, I mean, I've been always writing poetry and books and short stories, not showing them to anybody until I was about 25, maybe. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, this is interesting, because again, you know, I like the sort of things where you sort of go, right, you know, right from early on, like you're saying, you wanted a book on your shelf that had your name on it, type of thing. This again, you know, I can look at that from a musical point of view and thinking, as soon as you get bitten by the bug, that's the thing. You know, that's sort of your identity is sort of linked with that thing. And I was going to say, because you was mentioning about J.K. Rowling, I mean, how many people do you get that you look at and you go, that it's not exactly it's not the same story, but they might have said to you something that's obviously they were inspired, because I'm sure she must have made a massive impact. And people were sort of, because her story is, you know, her personal story is definitely about somebody who comes out of nowhere, or seemingly so, that might not necessarily be true, but against all the odds, does this thing that's just ridiculously brilliant.
I think she made an impact on authors feeling like they can do it. She definitely persuaded children and authors to write, but I don't think she actually made a huge amount of difference in her genre. I don't think fantasy has changed much because of Harry Potter. I don't see many other students going to wizarding school because it's too similar.
Yes, because the thing is, it's a bit obvious if you do that, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Whereas Tolkien, he's the one who made the massive effect on his genre. People are still writing about orcs and goblins and elves, still doing that, and dragons, you know, and that's still very much Tolkien based. But J.K. Rowling, I think she made an emotional effect on people.
Yes, I think that's a good point.
Early years. Yeah, in her early years, she persuaded people that you might be nobody, but you can do it just like I did. And of course, now you have the phrase, as an author, you always hear well, you're not going to be the next J.K. Rowling. It's like the phrase you hear. And to be honest, I heard that from age 7. And I said, I don't want to be the next J.K. Rowling.
No.
Really, as soon as people started saying that to me, I started going, I don't want to be somebody else.
I just want to be Tolkien.
Me. I want to be writing in my way. You know. But what's really interesting is my relationship with the idea of being an author has massively changed. Since running a business, I had this epiphany. I think it was in July. My business was running an event where we had 5 authors, including myself, up on stage in front of an audience of about 30 people, talking about their books, doing interviews and reading a section from their books. And this had been in the works for months. And it was really exciting to have to go ahead, because I'd never really done a reading, signing, talking about my book. And I got the chance to do it myself. But I also got the chance to give it to other authors who'd never done it. And I'm sitting on the stage. I was the 4th to be interviewed or something. Sitting on the stage, listening to all the other people reading their books and being interviewed. And they're so nervous and excited. And as soon as it comes to me, I just think to myself, what am I doing here? I shouldn't be here. I should be the one supporting those authors. The point of me is to give these authors this opportunity. And I didn't really enjoy it, actually, myself, talking about my book, my creative process, and reading from my book. I hate reading out loud, but I didn't really enjoy it. Instead, at the end of the evening, I had those authors come up to me and tell me how much they got out of it, that they were the ones who had really benefited from it. And I had given that to them. And that felt a million times better than promoting my own book on stage. And kind of from there, I've gone, I'm happy to write books. It's fun. And it's fun having my copy in my hands. It looks good for my business. But actually, my purpose in life is to give other authors their dream.
Well, that's very interesting, because that is very similar to me when it comes to music, because I've taught all my life, and the thing that really I find exciting is that when I've worked with someone, I taught somebody, and sort of, I actually don't even like that word taught. I sort of encourage them to sort of play. And when I'm sort of involved with them in a musical project, because that used to be part of what I did, I found that so much more interesting than being trying to sort of market yourself.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was something
Yeah.
strange about that. So I really get what you're saying there.
Yeah, I mean, so somebody I worked with recently, she's an American playwright called Melissa Mosquito. Sorry, edit that out. Melissa Mosquito.
That's all right. That's good.
She wrote this play that I edited a few times, and I actually managed to go to the first showing of it because it was live streaming in New York. And I stayed up till 1 a.m. to watch this thing. It was like 6 o'clock for them. And it was absolutely fascinating. And I got such amazing feeling from watching her succeed in her play and have it on stage. And it was fully booked and it just looked amazing. And the actress was fabulous. And the whole thing, I got out of it so much more than I would have if I'd written the thing, and I've got an idea.
Without the anxiety.
Yeah,
the anxiety of putting something on stage.
Yeah, I think it's also that, I don't know, I feel like I'm supporting somebody else. I'm helping somebody else's dream. I mean, I've got a play and a film script in mind. It's actually the same story that I want to write as both. And I know a director and an actress who I want to be in it. And I'm thinking to myself, am I really interested in writing a play, or am I interested in collaborating with them? And I think it is more about the collaboration and giving that actress a job, working with him as a director and working with them. I mean, she happens to be a really close friend. So I'm like, what kind of what side of my brain is actually interested in this? Is it my creative side? Yeah, I am creative, or is it the actual working with people and the collaboration and developing their ability and their opportunities that actually makes me feel good,
Yeah. No, I get that. The thing is, if you're somebody who's the sort of the archetypal front person who doesn't give a damn about anybody else as long as you're in the spotlight, I think you're obviously polar opposite to that, because I've got a couple of friends who are, I'm okay as a frontman, but I couldn't do the wedding gig and the function stuff. I've had done with all of that years ago, but I got some friends who are just utterly brilliant at doing that. But for me, it's a collaborative thing. For me, it's a collaborative thing. If I'm working with people and creating music and then going to play, there's something about other people being involved in the thing, that they're doing bits that I can't do.
Exactly.
That sort of weirdly reflects good on me, if you see what I mean. I quite like that. And also I don't feel, like I was saying, I don't get so much of the anxiety thing of it's all on my shoulders, because it's if somebody else is doing stuff. So that's really interesting. So let's go back a little bit, because I'm quite intrigued by, you're reading these books and obviously, you're aware that I'm assuming as you're reading other people's work, if you're already thinking that you're going to be writing, or you are writing, and as you say, you start writing things that are a little bit of a pastiche of something else, because that's obviously what we do. When does it get to that point when you sort of go, no, who am I? Did you get that? Does that come at some point where you go, I'm obviously not.
Yeah, I think I got that after my first book, because the dream was to hold my book in my hands, and that was like the dream that drove me to write and drove me to do everything. And I got there, and it was actually the most hilarious situation. It wasn't at all what you imagine. The books actually arrived a day before they had said they would. And there's 10 boxes of 200 books that arrived at my door. And I was actually in the shower. So I literally had a towel around me and shampoo in my hair when I went and answered the door to the postman, the delivery guy with a van full of books. And I'm incredibly excited. I must look like a madwoman. Incredibly excited, going, you don't realize these are my books. These are my books that I wrote, with shampoo in my hair, It was not the most ideal situation, I have to say. So yeah, I mean, I opened that and I got my moment with my book, and I got the glow of it all, and soon after that, it became like, well, I don't really enjoy marketing it. I'll do it because I have to. I don't really enjoy marketing it. I far more enjoyed the writing and the actual publishing of it. Now I have to do it all over again. And I really enjoyed writing book 2, but I haven't done a huge amount of marketing for it. It kind of sits there on a shelf looking nice. And I kind of started questioning what, who am I? What's my purpose? Like, what drives me? And the idea of marketing in my book doesn't drive me.
Because that is a big problem, isn't it, for artists, I think, generally. Because
it's funny though, isn't it? Because we've just spent the last few years slaving away on this labor of love, and we've put so much of our creative efforts into it, and as soon as you've actually published it, or released your song or whatever it is, you're suddenly incapable of talking about it. And people say, what was your creative process, or what made you influence, what you influenced by? And you go, I don't know.
Yeah, I know, no, but I've spoken to lots of people who are really, big names who go, don't like listening to what I've done.
Yeah.
And you think I think that is quite a normal thing. So
yeah, you see that with actresses as well, actors and actresses who say, I've never watched anything I've been in.
Exactly. So you do, to actually go and sell your work, because there is that problem of when you've spent all that time and invested a lot of yourself in something, to have somebody turn around and go, I don't like that, is so difficult. And I think that's what we try to shield ourselves from. Because people make a lot of excuses, don't they, when they go, well, I'm not so happy with the cover, or
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely had criticism from my book that I don't agree with, and I've had to either just brush it off, and in the background I'm all ranting about how I mean, I've had criticism. My main character can be a bit violent for her own defense. She defends herself, she's a criminal, and I thought, what a cool kick-ass girl she is. She has to look after herself, and she's a criminal, and you don't often see that. And I got, she's so nasty, she's not a very nice character, is she? She's just evil. And I was like, hang on a minute, take a character like James Bond. In the first scene of his movies, he blows up an entire building of people. They may be baddies, but they've got children and families and wives, and and he blows them up, and he walks away, and he's completely suave and cool, and we love James Bond. And I'm going, how is he allowed to sort of willy-nilly blow things up? And it's really cool. But my female character is not allowed to defend herself.
I often find when people criticize things, it tells me a lot about them.
Yeah.
It doesn't actually tell me a lot about me.
Yeah.
And because people will make comments about things, and one of the things that really struck me early on when I started recording, I started doing CDs and stuff, because I'd done a lot of stuff prior to that within a band. But when I started doing stuff that was sort of me with my own sort of band, and somebody would buy something off you, and they would all go, I really like track number whatever, and they'd say that that's the best, that is really all awesome. And then somebody else would go, I really like another track. And in the end, you go, well, there isn't a clear front runner here.
Yeah.
But everybody believes their opinion is right.
Yeah. So I've got a character in book 2, and everybody has a different opinion of whether they like him or not, and for what reason, or what his agenda is, or what, So some people are saying you need to clarify his agenda, and I'm going, no, I don't. That's the point. You can make your own agenda. You can decide what you think of him. And well, my husband hates him, thinks he's a whole awful character. My dad thinks he's a brilliant character. My mum is a bit like, nah, he's a character, and everybody seems to have their own opinion. Some people think he's the love interest. Some people think he's awful. Don't go anywhere near him. And I'm just going to leave him as it is. People are going to make their own minds up about him. And it's really interesting. Yeah, I mean, I suppose when you're writing music, it's about the tracks on your albums, and when you're writing a book, it's normally about the characters or the plot points.
No, you're right. I remember seeing an interview with is it Ken Russell who did Tommy, and it was, I think it was Russell Harty was interviewing him, and he made some comment about this character in whatever it was in Tommy. You know, you're obviously suggesting so and so, and I remember Russell turning around and going, no, and I can remember, you know, Russell Harty going like, being completely, you know, his jaw dropped, because he was expecting to agree, you see, and he went, no, but if you think that, that's okay. You know, that wasn't my intention at all.
Yeah,
but if
exactly.
you think that, that's all right. And I sometimes think that skill of being able to, this is, you know, to sort of disassociate yourself slightly with what it's not yours anymore type of idea. You know, if you've written a book or written a song, it's not yours. You're part of the process, but it's not yours. If somebody turns around and says, I don't like you, go, fine. Doesn't bother me.
So actually, I find that you've made a successful work of art, or whatever you want to call it, if people analyze it in different ways. It means that people have been thinking about it.
Well, people have read it for a start, haven't they? And
people have read it or listened to it. People have analysed it and thought about it, and it's been stuck in their heads in some way, and they've been trying to analyse it. And you think, if it was really boring or rubbish, they would just skip past it and they wouldn't think about it. You know, and so that's a success for me. I'm going to hand it over to you, and you can analyse it in your own way, because it's cool that you're analysing it in the first place. You know, I love that.
When you okay, I'm going to go back to the thing about the student magazine now, because I'm interested in this. What happened? There was nothing, and then did you decide you were going to do it, and then got people on board, or was it something that was a collaborative effort?
So there was a student magazine, part of the student union, that advertised. They said, come to this magazine and you'll get real world experience of working at a magazine and working as a journalist. So I started writing for them, and having had real world experience as a journalist before, real world experience, I'd done some work experience, you know, I went, this is nothing like real world experience. This is nothing. This is terribly written. There's no editing. There was no actual journalism happening on campus. And I saw a lot of students going, hang on, what about my film? It's being broadcast, it's being shown next week for the first time ever, and you're not talking about it. And I would walk past the drama studios and see adverts for all these plays going on that nobody's talking about. So at first I talked to this magazine at the union and just said, how about you talk about these things? You know, I'm happy to do a column on these things. And they just weren't interested. So me being me, I didn't say, okay, I'm going to hide under a blanket. I said, okay, I'll do it myself. And at first I applied to the student union to make my own magazine, which would be a student run campus led thing. And they denied me, so I did it anyway. And in the end, I had about 30 writers. I had a queue of writers wanting to work for us. I mean, it was free, obviously, it's volunteer, but I had a queue of people. And if somebody wasn't quite up to scratch, I could let them go and have somebody fill their place straight away. And in the end, I ended up taking writers from the original magazine, from the union magazine, which they weren't best pleased about. But yeah, we ended up with, I think, 4 or 5 of us who kind of ran it. And we call me editor-in-chief, because I was a bit of a micromanager. I felt that the need to look at every single article that went through. And so I pretty much read everything we did. And we had, 3 or 4 articles going out a week. It was like an online running thing. And it was always about society events or plays or films or music being made, and some poetry being published, creative writing. And it was just great fun. We had a really good time for, I would say, about a year. And then I and then I went to hospital and it all came crashing down from there. So
okay.
yeah, I have a rare condition called volvulus, long story short, where my colon twists on itself, and this was the first time it happened.
Right.
So I was in hospital.
Very nice. That doesn't sound
It's
very
really
nice.
not very nice. It's all about your diet and what you can and can't eat, and some things affect your colon than other things. So it's a really complicated thing, and it's rare, so people don't tend to know about it. So that was the first time, and I was in hospital. I had an operation. I was there for a few weeks, and it wasn't nice. And there's me, clearly a budding entrepreneur, running a magazine from my hospital bed, and I had to hand it over to my kind of editor, second in command, and it just fizzled out really. By the time I came back, I wasn't very well. This was around Easter, I think, in 2014 or 15, I think. And I wasn't very well, so I didn't really have the energy to do it, and I was now behind with my studies and everything, so it kind of fizzled out from there. But for about a year or so, we had really great fun running my own magazine, and I knew that I could be a team leader. I knew I could manage people. I could manage people when they weren't doing very well at their jobs, which I was quite happy about. I could persuade them to either do better or to move on. So that I thought that was quite good management, sort of leadership experience, and obviously editing experience. I learned a lot about different types of editing, different types of things to write about. I mean, I was editing creative writing, short stories and poems, as well as journalism. It was all a weird mixture. So then I finished my degree, and soon after university, you know, you go and get that job that you don't really want, but it's going to pay you a bit of money. And it was just admin support for, I don't even know what they did. It was a software company, and they never really explained to me what they actually did. So I was there answering phones and doing the most boring stuff.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
So do you think, obviously, I would have said probably that doing that magazine must have set you up quite good for running what you're doing now.
Because yeah, I think so. I mean, in terms of, it started my knowledge in editing, and it gave me some kind of background to talk about, other than an English literature and philosophy degree. I had some kind of experience in editing to talk about when I started the business. So that was a help. But I mean, in the end, I did a copy editing course, and that was my real, that's my real sort of the thing I'd put on my CV, you know.
So when did you start? You know, how did Softwood start up?
So I'm at that job, the admin job, and I was only there for 5 weeks.
Oh right, okay, so that's a good one then.
Yep, because I was okay. It was a bit boring. It was doable, and it was literally 5-minute walk from my flat. And then I got really ill. Like it was winter, and I was really ill, and I couldn't speak. Literally, my voice had gone. And that's when they decided to call me in for a critical meeting. So I'm called in, and with absolutely no idea that this is going to happen, they just said, by the way, we decided to cut your job. You're not fired. We've just cut your job. So your job no longer exists. Please hand us your key and fob right now and collect the stuff off your desk. Bye. And literally, it was like a week before Christmas. And I lost it was like 18K a year. It was a really good job for you know, I just graduated, and it was a week before Christmas. So I'd already pretty much spent all of it on Christmas presents. And I was just cut. So I had a bit of a crap, it wasn't crap Christmas, it was just a crap winter really, when I was like, I have no job, I don't know what to do. So January, I started interviewing for the same job in other businesses, and I absolutely hated it. I just felt demoralized and humiliated every time I failed to get that job, and it was over and over and over again. There was one company I went to, they brought in a puppy to see who would get distracted by the puppy, and this puppy is jumping up against the walls and yapping everywhere and trying to climb on your lap. And clearly I was distracted by the puppy, and it was really obviously a distraction mechanism to see who would be distracted easier. And I just thought, what a cruel trick to play, especially on somebody who hasn't done many interviews, you know. Otherwise, why bring a puppy into an office?
Okay. Now, I'll tell you a little story, which is not quite, there are no animals involved in my story, but I went to an interview many years ago. This is before I sort of become sort of professional. I was already gigging and stuff like that, but I'd been working in London, and I thought, well, this is crazy because I can't get back in time to, you know, set off to do gigs and stuff like that. So I just went to some local interviews in North Kent, near where I was living. And in those days, you know, if you went to an employment agency, they'd ship you off to anywhere, and some of the places were rubbish, you know, like you're saying, you think, oh God, awful place. There's one, and this guy was obviously deeply into cricket, which I absolutely hate. I must say, I quite like certain types of sport, but cricket is something I do not understand, and I've never liked it, and, you know, never was interested in playing it. So this guy started asking me questions about cricket as part of the interview.
Yeah. Wow.
So I actually turned around to this guy and said, because he said to me, I like cricket, so I'm going to ask you some questions about cricket. So I said, well, I hate it. I just literally said, I hate it. So you can forget that, because I'm not going to ask any questions about a sport that is so bloody boring. I didn't use bloody, I used something else. So I said, are we finished then? And that was it. Because I did, so yeah. In a way, because I sort of reflected on this and thought, obviously, this was before people had some sort of psychological, somebody coming in with a psychological sort of format about how to do an interview. It was this guy who just basically owned this company. They thought, well, this would be a great idea. You know, there's no evidence it would ever work. And that thing about the puppy sounds a little bit like that. It's like, who on earth would do something as ridiculous as that?
Yeah, it was just so weird. And there was such a sort of a big tall glass building corporate environment where you wouldn't normally have a puppy. It wasn't like a cute little, you know, a little shop that might have a puppy in the back. It wasn't one of those. It was definitely there to distract, you know, the person being interviewed. And of course I love dogs, so of course I paid attention to the cute puppy on my lap. And they hardly even, the interview was only 10 minutes long, they hardly even talked to me, and that was that, because I was distracted by their puppy. I just thought, oh, it's just a stupid tactic. Anyway, my story.
Totally ridiculous. Totally
anyway,
ridiculous. Sorry, carry on.
So,
Yeah, come on, far away.
Yeah, so by the point, you know, I'm really humiliated by interviews. And I just thought, you know, I can't find a job. Back in university, I, at the same time as doing everything else, I worked as a silver service waitress. So at this point, I'm just like, okay, you know what, I'm going to go back to that. I know how to do it. I know how to work in boxes and at race courses and do big silver service stuff. So I applied to, I think it was Doncaster race course, and I got the job pretty easily because I'd had 3 years of experience in it. Ended up going quite high up the ranks quite quickly, training other people. So I was there for a year maybe. And then I got, oh my God, it's just a series of bad news. I got a really bad knee injury and I couldn't waitress anymore. So at this point, things are getting bad, and they offered me an event management job. So instead of just being a waitress, I would sit in the office managing events. So it sounded awesome, really cool job that they actually offered me. I only went in for a meeting. I didn't even need an interview. It was like offered on a plate. And the day before my grandpa died. And I was in this interview like, I don't really know who I am, what's going on. My dad's in tears 5 hours away from me because I was in Sheffield at this point. And I don't need to be here. I shouldn't be here. So pretty much in the middle of the interview, they were talking to me and I was just not hearing what they were saying. And I just said, you know what, I need to be with my dad. I'm really sorry, guys, but I'm going to have to go. And I got on a train and I went down to Sussex from Sheffield, and I went and spent the week with my dad, and then there was a funeral. And on the way back from that, coming back to Sheffield, I was on the train and I just thought, I'm never going to do an interview ever again in my life. I did in the end, but I said to myself, never again am I going to do an interview. So I said, okay, how else am I going to get money? How else am I going to do it? And I sat down and basically wrote a list of the things, the skills I had that I could monetize. And there was writing and editing, basically. I mean, I could do music, but I was trying to do that at the time and it wasn't working. So I was thinking, what can I monetize that could work? So at first I started as a copywriter and I hated it. Writing what other people wanted me to write didn't work for me. Then I just thought, okay, you know what? I've done editing before. So I went online and I said, okay, I'm going to do 5 novels for free. And over summer 2017, I did 5 novels for free, which I found online. And I'm amazed that those people gave them to me to do, but I gave them for free. And one of those authors is still a client today. And by July 2017, I was earning money for editing. By the next July 2018, I'd earned a good amount, enough amount to actually, I moved in. I had a new boyfriend by that time, who's now my husband. And we moved into a lovely house in Guildford instead of a nasty flat in Sheffield. And I was freelance editing, but doing really quite well out of it. And that was my only job. I was doing really quite well. So it took me a year and a half to actually feel like I could live off this.
Yeah. So, because editing is, I think it's really difficult because I'm not very good like that. But so that skill that you've got, because even if you enjoy writing, it's not the same thing, is it? I mean, editing.
It's not the same thing, and actually, I prefer editing.
Well, there we go. So, but I mean, for most writers, editing is like pulling your teeth out. Well, it is for me anyway. It's just I find it really difficult, and I need something to sort of help me do that, And I think that you've obviously found something, but you wouldn't have found that, would you, unless you'd become so disillusioned by what was out there for you. If you sort of,
there was so many. Now that I look back, now that my life is happy and stable and I've got a husband and everything's happy and going well, I look back on those years that were full of ups and downs, and all of the downs taught me something and led me towards something better. Every single one of them, opened a door that led me towards something better, and either taught me a life skill or just a technical skill like editing, or it taught me what to trust and what to think about who I am and what I want, but also when I broke up with my ex, I moved down to Sussex, and that's where I met who's now my husband, and all of those problems I had in those 4 years have led me towards an award-winning business, editing skills, having published 2 novels. I'm doing okay because of all those issues. So I think if you're feeling like everything's really crap at the moment, use that as an opportunity to learn about yourself and dig yourself out of that hole, and things will get better.
It's brilliant. So when you started this then, and you said you started this by editing some work for free.
I was just, at the time I was just Maddy Glen freelance editor. And then I would say January 2018, I was like, okay, this is actually working. Maybe I should make a proper business name and a website and all that stuff. And honestly, I was on the phone with a friend brainstorming business names. We came up with hundreds of just random names. And a lot of people ask me, why Softwood? What does that name mean? And it's simply that books are made from softwood as opposed to hardwood. It's literally as simple as that.
No, and it's got a good ring to it, hasn't it? Actually.
So then I was really interested in self-publishing, as opposed to, I could go onto this in detail, but as opposed to traditional publishing, there are 2 different types of publishing. I was really interested in self-publishing, so it became Softwood Self-Publishing, which it feels like a mouthful, but when you put it at SWS, it's not that difficult to say, and it rings off the tongue.
It does, and it's there's a sort of an alliteration in there anyway, isn't it? So which is good. So you said you got an award.
Yes, we did. in July. So it was crazy. This was just about the time when our landlady had told us we were being turfed out of the house. So I was looking for a house and an office. I was running that event I mentioned, the author showcase event. And then I got a phone call to say we'd won the Prestige Award for Self-Publishing Specialists of London and the South East for 2022.
Did you
which
even
is
know you
quite
were in the running? Did you know you were in the running?
Yeah, so somebody had nominated us anonymously, for the Prestige Awards. And we got an email a month or so before saying, you've been nominated and you've been shortlisted. And we thought, okay, we didn't even know this was a thing. We've been shortlisted. Cool, let's find out what we've been shortlisted for. And at that point, they say, would you like to accept your nomination? And we go, yeah, okay, cool. And we thought nothing would come of it, honestly. We were just very excited that somebody had nominated and shortlisted us. And then we got this phone call to say that we'd won it. And I remember being in the kitchen and hardly being able to breathe. My business had just won an award. My little business that I made from my sofa had just won an award.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
We now had an office and everything was, yeah, that was just amazing. It was amazing news. So we got a photo shoot and we got a very fancy actual award and trophy and certificate and an event to go to, which was quite fun. And it was really cool. So that was around, the actual event was in August, which was of course amidst us moving house and planning a wedding. So it was all a bit bonkers at the time. But what's also exciting is only a few weeks ago, we were finalised for an innovation award by the, I have to say this right, I think it was the local council, the Mid-Suffolk County Council. So we had actually applied for that and we were finalised. But that essentially gave us the opportunity to go to a big gala dinner evening event with photo shoot and fancy outfits and fancy dinner and everything, and all the right people there that you want to know.
Yeah.
In fact, I knew quite a few people there already. And we didn't win the award, but our name was called out as a finalist, and we got all kinds of things on the website and stuff saying we're finalists. So it was an amazing event. Really happy to have been there. And actually, since I've had people say, "Oh, you're winning awards left, right, and centre," and I'm going, "I won one, and I was finalised for another, but you can think I won two if you want."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I think the thing is, it's all about what people think, isn't it? Yeah. You're because I've noticed you put quite a lot of stuff up on things like LinkedIn, and they're always really well focused. Because a lot of I don't spend a lot of time on things like LinkedIn. I don't spend an awful lot of time on social media just generally, but sometimes when you see there's a sort of a level of communication that certain people have, and yours is really good. How long did it take you to get that? Because this is, again, I think something where a lot of artists fall flat on stuff.
You want to know my trade secret? My trade secret? I don't do it.
Do you know what? I was wondering whether you were going.
So it's my husband who also runs the marketing side of the business. So he does marketing and publicity for our clients and for me and for the business. Yeah. So a lot of the LinkedIn posts are him, and he is a social media guru. He's brilliant at it. Yeah, no,
seriously, well, for me to spot that, seriously, because it's
he's really good. My LinkedIn page, I have to say, is really not just me. There have been at least 3 or 4 people on it at the same time doing various different things. At the moment, it's just Nathan and I. So yeah, so I run campaigns on talking to different people, and I do sales stuff on there, as he does the marketing side of things. Yeah, he's really, really good, and he runs my Twitter page as well. So I've got over 4,000 followers, I think, on there, which is really cool, I think. And he runs that. I do my Instagram page, which I'm quite happy with. So I am on Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Technically on Facebook, but I don't really use it a huge amount. It's just there to show that I exist.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, a lot of this stuff about social media is getting the platform that actually works for the sort of thing that you do. Yeah. I mean, I use Facebook quite a lot, but only because the people that tend to do this sort of thing I'm putting out there, they tend to be a bit older or whatever. And they've got a particular way of interacting, whereas Twitter I don't sort of use. But if I was doing something else where that was the market, where you're getting information across, then you just have to be able to work with whatever.
Yeah, Twitter is really good for the networking side of things. If you want to be talking to the right people, if you want to be getting your voice heard by the right people, that's where to go. So, I mean, Nathan says there are different uses for each one, I think.
Yeah.
Instagram is the shop front, is your shop window to make things look pretty. Whereas Twitter is you're more likely to sell on Twitter, and you're more likely to get people to walk into your shop on Twitter. So there's sort of different uses for each one. Anyway, he could talk about that to the cows come home, but I can't really.
No, but it's for me to realize how good your profile is, it's just like,
well, thanks.
You must be doing something right, because I'm not very good at all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, it's brilliant. So you've got another novel that you're working on, right? You've got another book that you're working on.
Well,
you say, but it could be years.
Yes. Have you heard of NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month? This is a challenge in November that's quite big, or I suppose it's quite big on social media, but it's an official challenge set by NaNoWriMo. You can get an account online for free and everything, and they essentially set you a challenge to write 50,000 words in a month. So that's what, 1,700 words a day or something. I started it. So the first 2 books I've managed, I've done NaNoWriMo twice. You say I've won NaNoWriMo. So I've won it twice with the first 2 books. And I really wanted to do it this time. And to be honest, my brain's not in it. The creativity is just not there. And the trouble with Nano, if you've got a really strong idea and you're feeling really creative, it's quite easy. You just get your flow when you keep writing. If you've got writer's block, or you're not there in the space, it's like you're trying to push out the creativity, which just makes it drier and drier and drier every day. Yeah. So at the moment, I'm really doing business development stuff. I mean, it's not very interesting to everybody else, I don't think, but complex business development stuff is really what my brain is into at the moment. So it's just not feeling very creative. So I have started book 3, on chapter 4, and I absolutely hate 1 to 3, so they're probably going to completely change. And I feel like it's been drudgery trying to get through those chapters. So I'm just going to put it aside until it feels better. I don't need to write it right now, but I do need to work on my business. So I kind of had this epiphany yesterday. I just went, I'm going to write when I feel right, when I feel ready, when my brain wants to. I'm not going to force it. So yeah, that's what I'm doing at the moment.
Cool. So I'll put some stuff on the show notes about how people can contact you, because I'm sure there's a lot of people out there. You think, I've got a book in me, and they start writing and they think, oh, hang on a minute. It's particularly when they get near to the end, and it's a bit like, I need some help.
Yeah. Well, so I mean, we help authors, we coach authors through writing their books. So I've had a client come to me sometime last year saying, well, I've got this book, but it's a mess. It's a complete mess. So I kind of read the summary, I helped her plot it, she rewrote the whole thing, and ever since she's been a brilliant writer, and she really understands the plot. And I've been working on each of her books ever since. It's now like 5 or 6 of them. If you need help from the very beginning, I can work through the hero's journey with you, the structuring, the characterization, all of that stuff, the coaching side of things. But if you're near the end, or you need help with the actual finalized manuscript, I can do all different kinds of editing with you, so, and that's just one of our services. So
that sounds really, really good. Really good.
Yeah,
because it is a bit like when you're doing stuff yourself, you and then you go to either submit it to a publisher, you suddenly realize, hang on a minute, they've all got different ways of submissions and how they want things structured, and it's like, oh my god, it's a nightmare.
I mean, obviously I'm working in self-publishing, and there are
reasons. I can see why.
There are reasons why I wanted to work in self-publishing, and my number one reason is about control. And first of all, trying to get an agent and a publisher is like winning the lottery.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of authors win the lottery and then actually go, I don't really want that prize. I'm not actually enjoying it, and I'm not getting the control I hoped for, or I'm not getting what I wanted out of it, or they're asking for things I'm not very comfortable with. So often a traditional publishing contract will end with an author getting very small amounts of royalties, and not a huge amount of control over the title or the cover, or sometimes even the editor will ask them to change really massive things inside the book because it will make it more sellable, you know.
Yeah.
So some people are really happy to go down that angle and really try hard on that. Some people think, you know, that means I've made it as an author, and some are far more interested in publishing what they want to publish in the way they want to publish it. And if you self-publish, yes, it costs, but you get 100% royalties, 100% control. The copyright is all yours, and you get to write whatever you like and publish it whenever you like. So exactly. For me, it's a no-brainer.
No, you're absolutely right. It's absolutely right. I mean, particularly if you've got, you know, an idea about the structure of how the book is going to be and the presentation of the book. As soon as you produce, you know, you send that to try to get a publisher involved, and then it's like, well, no, we want it done this way, or, you know, and it's like, well, suddenly part of what you're doing is not there. Somebody else has got control over that, and as you say,
I think a lot of authors end up rewriting their book for how the publisher wants it, not for how the author wants it, and it becomes not their book in the end. It becomes half the publisher's book, and of course it does become the publisher's book. They have the copyright over it. So yeah, so some authors, I don't want to naysay that, because some authors are really happy with that angle and feel comfortable with that, and are happy to attempt to win the lottery. And some people, of course, have already got the agent, have already done that, so they can do it again with their second books, and they're very happy.
That's the thing. If you know how somebody wants your book to look, because they're going to, you know, you've got the, and
you're happy to change the way you've written it for somebody's expectations, then fine. Go ahead with that, and that sounds great. But there are a lot of authors now who are coming out of their traditional publishing contracts to go self-published, because they realize they actually could get more money out of it, and more control. And it really is about creative control. I think people really want to keep not just the actual content, not just the characters and the story. They want to keep the cover design that they've decided, or the title they've decided, the way it's printed, the way it's sold, you know, so many different aspects of this. We allow our clients to choose every single step of it. Obviously, we say, well, these are the choices you have. We educate them on that, and we allow them to make the choice on where they want to go. And it's really important to us that they feel that they remain in control. And by the time they've actually published it, we then help with the marketing with their ideas in mind. So what platforms do they want to market on? Who do they want to sell their book to? You know, do they want to put it into shops? Do they want it printed? Do they want it as ebook? There's literally a whole myriad of decisions there to be made, but it's your choice. So it's like my whole business model, of course, the self-publishing angle. But I could talk about it. I could do a whole TED talk on the topic.
Good. Yeah. All right, that's brilliant, Maddy. Thanks ever so much. Really good, really interesting.
Thanks.
To hear your story.
It's been great coming on.
Yeah, no, it's been great having a chat. So you never know, we might sort of meet up at some point.
Yeah, well, I'm in Sussex sometimes.
Yes, well, yeah, definitely. Yeah. You know, particularly if you're doing any, you know, if you're doing any sort of talks and stuff, because
I mean, they tend to be through the summer talks, and I do book festivals and workshops and stuff like that. But they tend to be through the summer, you know. So
okay.
We might. I don't know what next year looks like, but we might be doing stuff. I don't know.
That's good. Anyway, that's great. Thanks ever so much for your time. Speak soon. Cheers.
Bye.